This is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, happy to have with us the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona. Mr. Secretary, how are you?
Doing great. Doing really well. Thank you. Good to be with you, Mark.
Good to have you. Good to see you. First of all, let everyone know where you are today.
Yes, I'm really happy. We're here at in Mississippi at Jackson State University, an HBCU that's doing amazing work, lifting up the profession, the teaching profession. I was visiting a school this morning. I wanted to share this with you. 67% of the Black teachers in Jackson Public Schools come from Jackson State University. Talk about a commitment and a connection between higher education and our public school system. This is what we need to lift up across the country.
No, that's important. I have to ask you this, though. How many, are there a number of Black male teachers included? Because we know how important that is these days.
Absolutely. I just had a conversation with one. This young man is in a master's program to become a teacher. He's done in May, and he is excited. I know the kids that are going to have him are going to love him. Amazing. That's what these programs do. You know, we're proud today. I made the announcement here in Mississippi, the Augustus Hawkins grant that is sending $18 million to 12 different institutions who are creating a pipeline for Black and brown educators, diversifying the profession and addressing the teacher shortage that we know is happening across the country. So that was the announcement today. We did it here at this beautiful university. Amazing students, amazing administration, and HBCU teaching the rest of the country how to do it.
And that's important, especially during African American History Month. So tell us a little bit more about the Augustus F. Hawkins. And for those of you who don't know, this is Black History Month. Augustus Hawkins, I had the pleasure of meeting him in my life when I was a very young man. And he was the first African American member of Congress elected from west of the Mississippi. He was from California. But tell us a bit more about this Centers of Excellence program, if you would.
Sure. You know, we're highlighting at the Department of Education, and it's important, folks, to know this is the first time ever. Like, this has never happened before. This is the first time we're putting money at the Department of Education towards grow your own programs that are not only addressing the teacher shortage area, but helping make sure that the diversity in front of the classroom reflects the diversity in the classroom. We know across the country, about half of the students identify themselves as a student of color, yet only 1 out of 5 teachers identifies themselves as that. So, you know, I was talking to a teacher a little while ago, a pre-service teacher was telling me, a male, you know, you talk about males. He was saying that the connection that he has with his students is different. You know, like they really gravitate toward him, and he feels that sense of responsibility in the profession already. He's not even started. So we're acknowledging with the Augustus Hawkins grant, those institutions that are doing a great job. We're helping support them. We want to lift the work across the country, the work that universities like those and Jackson State are doing.
And as you and I have discussed before, what you're doing now, you're investing in teachers. We need some of our local school systems to do the same, don't they? Because we need to attract more people of color to come back to the classroom and teach us. You and I discussed before, one time in our community, it was as prestigious to be a school teacher as it was to be a doctor or a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And we gotta get that back somehow. And that starts also with being sure that teachers are compensated fairly. So we're making the investment in them being prepared for excellence and to teach and to be professional in their excellence. Then folks have got to start investing in raising their salaries and compensating them, don't they? And to attract them and keep them.
Absolutely. Look, you know, we know educators do this because they love to serve their community, love to serve children, change lives. But we shouldn't be taking advantage of them. You know, you can't have a master's degree, work as a teacher with 25, 30 students, and then be expected to work Uber on the weekends to make ends meet. But we've normalized that in this country. So we're pushing, we're raising the bar, we're bringing attention to this. We're calling on governors, mayors to understand that if you invest in students by investing in educators, there's a huge return on investment. Education is the best economic driver in any state. And now we're talking about the jobs that are coming with the infrastructure plan, with the climate provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act, with the CHIPS and Science Act. We need to make sure we have teachers teaching these kids, or else those jobs are going to go unfilled. It's really about not only our community, but our country. But you're right. Investing in our educators is an investment in our students. In our country, on average, teachers make 20% less than people with similar degrees. We got to stand up for that.
Well, and your timing is interesting. Reconcile this very important initiative and this investment with this other climate that's bubbling up, beginning with DeSantis, to pretty much defeat, to some extent, what you're talking about. I mean, they're talking about African-American classes, but, if you're also doing that, you probably don't have the greatest affinity for African-American teachers. Some African-American teachers now are not going to be allowed to teach what they would normally teach. And by the way, have you all taken a position on the African-American studies ban in Florida and elsewhere?
Yeah, let me be very clear about this. Number one, I think that's all just trying to get political points and try to get a national profile ahead of a campaign run. It's politics. And it's not the first time kids have been used as pawns for politics. It happened when superintendents were trying to reopen schools safely, and he used, overreach to try to get around what superintendents and medical people knew was right. Use kids as pawns then. With the Don't Say Gay bill, another way, using students who are already marginalized as a ploy to try to get some national attention. And now the same thing. We didn't cancel African European studies. It was just African American studies. So let's call it what it is, right? So while I denounce any, what I call shenanigans over there, I also am not going to be using my platform to give him a national stage. The reality is what he's doing is wrong. Our students and our educators over there know it's wrong. Our parents know it's not right. And unfortunately, this is what keeps happening over there in order to get national attention so that he can get on the CNNs, get on the NBCs, and stay on Fox. So I see what it is. It's foolishness. I worry about the students there. We have an Office for Civil Rights where if students are feeling that they're being discriminated against or their civil rights are being violated, we're ready and able to take on whatever investigations we need to. Right now, though, it's just foolishness. It's further dividing the state. And what we need right now is unity. We need to work together to solve these problems. Another issue that was brought up over there that kind of went under the radar is the foolishness of having people just because they're married to somebody can become a teacher. Talk about lack of respect for the profession. This isn't a hobby. These are trained professionals here. So I want to roll up my sleeves and work with Florida. Those students are my students. But I think we need to stop with the overreach in government and trying to score political points by using students as pawns. It's got to stop.
The Augustus F. Hawkins Centers of Excellence program, folks. Now, am I reading this correctly? This was created back in 2008, but this is the first time it's actually being funded?
Correct. So the program was there without any funding. We're putting $18 million behind it now to fund 12 different institutions who are doing a great job, and we expect now that things are going to happen as a result.
And specifically, when it goes into these institutions, this will help them to recruit and train, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's really tightening up partnerships with the K-12 systems, creating pathways into the teaching profession, ensuring retention, because that's another thing. We talk a lot about recruiting, but retaining teachers of color is also something that requires work and emphasis. Many times these teachers are coming into new communities and they don't have a network of folks that they can connect with. And so recruiting these teachers, retaining them, providing supports along the way, creating college programming that dips into the high schools to make sure that we have candidates that are looking to become teachers. That's what the program is intended to do.
And I know I see the terminology career in here, folks. Even see one of the schools is going to at Bowie State. I'm just reading about that. It's specifically to recruit and prepare Black male teachers because we know that, and we need more. I'm sure we also can stand more Latino male teachers as well. That's not anything against women teachers.
No,
but,
not at all.
We know our young men. It's helpful,
Yeah.
and frankly, it's even helpful for young women. They need to see diversity of color and gender in the classroom. Lastly, Mr. Secretary, congratulations on this, and thanks for this very timely during Black History Month. You're at Jackson State now. Are you sure you're there in your capacity as secretary? You're not down there to apply for the head football
Look,
coach job, right?
No, I did flag football. We did all right. I actually had an undefeated season, but I have no business on the football field as a coach. I'll stick to education.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Secretary Cardona joining us from the campus of one of our HBCUs, the great Jackson State University. Ms. Secretary, we thank you for joining us, and congratulations, and thank you for doing this, and God bless the memory of Gus Hawkins.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter code FACE at checkout. That's harrys.com, code FACE. Enjoy.
Yesterday, the Deputy Director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, Chirag Baines, held an availability for some of us in the Black press to discuss Biden's new executive order to strengthen racial equity and support for underserved communities across the federal government. He laid out the new executive order and then took some questions from a few of us. Here's Chirag Baines of the Domestic Policy Council.
The president has signed a new executive order to advance equity. I want to start by stating that on his first day in office, President Biden signed an executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. That historic order emphasized the enormous human costs of systemic racism and persistent poverty, and provided a powerful mandate for all federal agencies to change the status quo. For the first time in history, the president made sure that equity and racial justice were embedded within the decision-making processes across the whole federal government. The president challenged agencies to rethink and assess how we serve the American people. And over the past 2 years, agencies have taken historic steps toward ensuring that federal programs are truly serving the American people in an equitable and just manner, and supporting communities that have, for far too long, either intentionally or through neglect over the years, been locked out of opportunity. Through the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Justice 40 Initiative, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and executive actions, we've championed racial equity and have advanced equal opportunity for underserved communities throughout this nation. The results are tangible. We have seen the most equitable economic recovery in memory, cut child poverty to its lowest rate on record in 2021, including record lows for Black, Latino, Native American, and rural child poverty. We've created over 12 million jobs and brought down unemployment nationwide, in particular for Black and Latino workers, for whom unemployment rates are 50-year lows. At the same time, we know that barriers still remain to equal opportunity and equity in America. As we've seen in far too many instances, there are still politicians who are intent on attacking equity programs in higher education, blocking access to the ballot, refusing to support common sense gun laws, preventing access to reproductive health and gender-affirming care, and fanning the flames that have led to hate-fueled violence. We know that there are barriers to equal opportunity in employment, in education, in housing, and in economic opportunity more broadly. Our work is far from done when it comes to achieving equity. And as the president has said, equity is not a 1 or 2 year project. It's a generational commitment. This work remains at the top of the president's agenda. That's why today the president is signing a new executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities. The president, with this action, is solidifying and deepening his commitment to ensuring that the promise for America means that this country is for everyone, that everyone deserves an equal opportunity to thrive. That includes communities of color, tribal communities, rural communities, LGBTQI+ individuals, people with disabilities, women and girls, and communities impacted by persistent poverty. This new executive order will takes several critical actions. It requires agencies to designate senior leaders that are accountable for implementing the equity mandate. It directs agencies to produce and release to the public equity action plans with specific strategies to overcome barriers to access to their programs and benefits every year. It requires agencies to improve the quality, frequency, and accessibility of their community engagement to really meet people where they are. We want to remove the barriers that underserved groups face in providing input on the federal policies and programs that impact their lives. The EO also formalizes the president's goal of increasing the share of federal contracting dollars awarded to small disadvantaged businesses, including those owned by Black and Brown business owners, by 50% by 2025. This will increase opportunities to help these small businesses grow, reduce the racial wealth gap, and also help more small disadvantaged businesses secure contracts that are funded through grants from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and other programs where the funding flows through states and local entities. The EO will also directs agencies to spur economic growth in rural areas and to advance more equitable urban development, because these communities have suffered from historic underinvestment, environmental pollution, and more. The order also requires agencies to prioritize strategies to advance equity, such as reducing administrative burden for grant applicants and improving data collection and analysis in management and regulatory processes coordinated by the Office of Management and Budget. The order also directs the head of the Office of Management and Budget to craft a budget that allows agencies to meet their equity action plan goals. That is, it's not just identifying strategies to advance equity. We're also properly resourcing them through the budget and asking Congress to provide the resources we need to build a country that is truly equitable for all. The EO also instructs agencies to consider a variety of steps that will bolster their capacity in civil rights offices and to focus those civil rights enforcement efforts on emerging threats like algorithmic bias and discrimination in automated technologies such as artificial intelligence. So this order does a lot. There are a lot of different pieces to it. But the critical thing here is that it is emphasizing that the president, at this point, 2 years into the administration, is doubling down on the commitment to equity. He is saying that this is a nation that belongs to all. It is a place where all people, regardless of background, regardless of where they started, regardless of their economic circumstances, deserve a fair shot of the promise of America. They deserve safety, dignity, and an equal opportunity to succeed. This executive order is charging the whole of the federal government to deepen that commitment and to take affirmative steps to build that country. Thanks very much. I'm happy to take the questions.
Reverend Mark Thompson from Make It Plain.
Both H.R. 40 and Senate Bill 40 have been reintroduced in this new session by the Democrats. This would establish a commission to study reparations proposals. As there's a stalemate in Congress, a number of appeals have come to the White House, including most recently from the National Council of Churches and other clergy, for the president to enact this commission via executive order. Is the president considering that? Is the Domestic Policy Council taking that up?
Thanks for the question, Reverend Thompson. I don't have anything new on your question with regards to reparations. The president has supported the study. We know that there's activity in Congress along that front, as you have stated. Today, I want to stay focused on the executive order. And just to bring it together, we know we don't have to wait And we never have felt we had to wait for a study or the creation of a commission to take concrete action to address the legacy of slavery and discrimination and Jim Crow in this country. How does that manifest? It manifests in a staggering racial wealth gap, barriers to equal opportunity in education, difficulty in developing businesses and developing communities, whole communities. Those have been priorities for this administration since day one. That's why the president signed an executive order on his very first day in office saying that every agency had to prioritize racial equity. It is why today, just past the 2-year mark in the administration, the president is deepening that commitment. And you will see further actions by agencies to address the legacies of discrimination and to build a country that is equal for all Americans.
All right, next we can take Stacey Brown from Black Press of America.
Stacey Brown, senior correspondent for the National Newspaper Publicists Association. I know you said this is only about the executive order, but I'm wondering when you think about racial equity and look at what's happening in Mississippi with House Bill 1020, does the president, the White House, the administration plan to any action there? Because that has everything to do with racial inequities and discrimination, et cetera, et cetera. How concerned is the administration about what's going on in Mississippi with that particular bill?
Thanks for the question. I'm aware of the measure you're describing, and I don't want to focus on any particular local matter at this moment and comment on that particular situation. But I will say that the president's setting the tone from the White House. At the federal level, he's saying equity has to be a priority, and that communities that are impacted by policymaking have a voice in the shaping of that policymaking. So that's why there's such an intentional engagement mandate that the president has issued to the agencies. It's why our policies and programs are driving toward an America that does promote equal education, employment, economic opportunity. It's why we're paying attention to environmental justice and why we are trying to ensure that at least 40% of the benefits of programs that are going to remediate climate issues, that are going to promote affordable housing across the country, go to communities that are most impacted by environmental hazards and the legacy of environmental discrimination. I'll also say what I said up top, that look, while some are attacking underserved communities, focusing on lifting all Americans up. We don't believe we don't believe in a zero-sum theory of policy. We don't believe that when you lift some up, you push others down. We believe that when you lift people up, we're all lifted up. The contrast in leadership is clear.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. As always, perform an act of kindness on behalf of an elder or young person. Write a letter to a sister or brother who just so happens to find her or himself incarcerated. Offer libations to the ancestors upon whose sturdy shoulders we all now stand. And above all, give thanks to the God of your understanding by whatever name you call her and him. All God asks of us is that we give each other love. Thanks for giving MIP love. And please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.